You must have heard of the saying Big Wig. You see, Stan here, art dealer extraordinaire, is referred to in the business as being a big wig, Stan. A big wig,
Yeah.
a man of substance, a successful guy with money and breeding and all that. That's where the term big wig comes from. You know the term big wig, but do you know where it originated? See, the world of antiques is full of great stories, and let me show you a very big wig from the period when the term, the saying, big wig was invented. Check him out. He is a Georgian gentleman wearing a very big wig. Now think about this. You can see that he looks rich and successful and pretty pleased with himself. With a wig like that, he would be, because wigs in the Georgian period were extraordinarily expensive. Made from horsehair, yak hair. They were styled using hair gel in the form of animal fat, which was prone to bursting into flames because this is pre-electricity. And if he walked through a room with loads of animal fat on his big wig set beautifully, and he got too close to a candle after a couple of potent Georgian cocktails, his head could burst into flames. That's a bit of a downside with wigs. But he was referred to as a big wig because wigs were very, very expensive. And if you were very, very rich, you would buy a big wig. This is pre the days of buying a big Ferrari or a big Bentley to show how rich you were. You couldn't do that. You might have a big carriage, but you would wear a big wig to show how rich you were. So that's where you get the saying from. Now Stan is going to tell us how much you'd have to pay for an 18th century portrait of a man wearing a big wig.
Well, to be honest, the joy of being an art dealer is that you find stuff all over the place at the right price. Something like that would cost you about £400, which comparably, it's not a lot of money for something historical like that, an historical image. You know, the joy of that on your wall, the history of it. You're not just buying the painting, you're buying the history. Like David just said, you know, the joy of something like that is immeasurable, really. The money is not the issue. You know, the joy of having something like that on your wall is immeasurable, and the pleasure it gives you is just amazing, really.
You know, you're so right, and it's not big wig money, is it?
It's not big wig money.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Not at all. No.
I mean, this big wig, when he had that painted in what, 17?
It cost him a fortune.
A fortune.
It cost him a fortune.
And
it
what
really
would,
would.
What would it cost you today? £5 grand?
Absolutely. To have a modern portrait done by a good artist, it would cost you £5 grand.
Exactly.
It would indeed. You know, and like I said, the joy for us as art dealers is that we source it, we buy it at the right price, and we pass that price on to the customer. You know, we're not greedy art dealers. We're really not. But buying something like that, you know, you could go to London and pay 30 grand for something like that.
You could with a name.
With a name.
And it's all about names, isn't it?
It's
This
all
is why
about
the art
names.
world is so
It's
exciting.
all about names.
I mean, if that was painted by Romney or Reynolds,
Absolutely.
it's hundreds of thousands of pounds.
It really is.
And it was painted at the same time.
At the same time.
And
It
it
really
just
was.
goes to show, Stan, just how cheap antiques are, aren't they?
Absolutely are. And
Bonkers.
I was saying to Eve the other day, you could go into IKEA and pay £100 for a print of no value.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. But if you look at some of the details in this picture, I mean, you know, this sort of braiding here and this scarf and the hand, that's a quality artist.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't put yourself out as an artist in that age if you weren't competent.
No, and a fella like this, of that standing, wouldn't commission some bum artist.
Exactly right. Exactly
And
right.
Let's just see what he might look like if he was clean. Do you mind if I use the saliva finger?
You do that.
Okay.
I do it all the time.
Okay, so cleaning old canvases like this isn't actually rocket science. You can do it with saliva or just warm water and a cotton bud yourself. And you try a little area to make sure you're not going to take the top layer of paint off. But obviously when this was new, he was very vibrant because the Georgians, rightly so, loved fabulous colours. So when new, this thing was really bright and sparkling. You could spend a few £100 on having him restored, or you could do it yourself at home in front of the fire whilst watching TV. And I'll show you the kind of results you might get. So let's have a look at the braiding on the coat here. Nice velvet coat. So wet finger, with a little bit of work, you can see how the painting would be transformed with not much effort. You don't need any great skill, but the satisfaction bringing him back to life would be remarkable.
What you can use as well is a neutral pH wet wipe thing.
Yeah.
It does exactly the same job.
Yeah.
You know, a gentle sort of cotton, sort of lint-free wet wipe. And
Good
it does
idea.
exactly the same job.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And do you know what you then get? And this I think is interesting. And you get a connection to the past. The closest we will ever get to travelling through time
Exactly.
is looking into this fella's face.
Absolutely.
Because he was a real person with
He
a
was,
real life.
absolutely.
And a family and troubles and mortgages, and just like we have today.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's long gone and forgotten.
Yeah.
So if you want to travel through time, this is the way to do it.
And like David said, he must have been a man of substance, else he wouldn't have had his portrait painted.
He wouldn't.
You know, so
Oh, Stan, it's absolutely. I absolutely adore him. Years ago, when the Americans were really big time buying antiques, I used to sell these to American buyers, and we used to refer to them as instant ancestors, which is a good thing. So you'd sell that to someone and put it up in his
course you
apartment in
would.
New
Yeah,
York.
yeah.
He's suddenly got an instant ancestor.
yeah.
And you put a good frame on him.
Yeah.
Put him in your living room. He doesn't look like 400 quid's worth. He looks
Exactly.
like 40 grand's worth.
exactly. A few years ago, we kitted out a hotel. It was a big hall, and again, we sourced a lot of portraits, and they'd look like they'd been there 100 years, 200 years,
Yeah.
because they were in situ, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. You know, they are instant ancestors.
Instant ancestors and talking points.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm a painter. I sell my work for substantially more than this, so I'm not going to try and not sell my work.
Yeah, sorry.
But it just goes to show how. I want to use the word cheap because that kind of sums it up, but it kind of cheapens the product. Very affordable.
Very
Is
affordable, yeah.
period art. I mean, it's just bonkers.
Yeah.
But
I mean-
again, as we said, put a name to it,
Yeah,
and it could be
exactly.
hundreds of thousands.
Of course it can.
Look at his face. He's pretty chuffed with his big wig
If that-
status.
If that was cleaned nicely and properly in a nice frame, it's on anybody's wall, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, dealers will be watching this, and if you fancy getting into the antiques business, here's a top tip. I mean, Stan is someone who turns art over, a lot of art, all of the time. There's another way of art dealing, and that is to buy this for 400 quid, clean it, frame it, and put it in your shop for 1,500 quid.
Exactly.
And it would stand right at 1,500
Exactly, it would.
without a
It would.
problem.
It would indeed.
It's another way of doing it, but you like your fast turnover.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I hold on to paintings for years. Just
Because you like them?
Because I like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, let's stand up.
Oh
and
no,
try
no!
and-
It's cold. I mean, Newark. We love Newark, but sometimes it gets chilly. So when you come to Newark, make sure you get your thermals on.
Yeah.
Stan, you've forgotten your thermals.
I've got thermal socks. That's about right.